I hate restaurants, and I don't like to overuse the word hate, but I have so many concrete reasons to dislike them. My fundamental aversion to restaurants is deeply linked to my reluctance to spend money, and reluctance is putting it lightly. But even if I'm not paying, it's still not ideal. I'm not picky, and staying home eating my own cheaper food would be much more convenient. Maybe not the best quality, but it's decent. I don't even splurge for takeout, and I'd consider that a much more viable option. Plus, restaurants are unfamiliar environments, and you have to deal with things like those unabsorbent napkins where you can spill water on them, and it just sits around the surface in a puddle. How am I supposed to wipe anything up? There's so much time involved in going to a restaurant. First, you have to pick one. How hard could that be? If you don't have an old standby, it's a nightmare coordinating everyone's preferences and dietary restrictions. And I used to be a vegetarian, so I understand. There's always someone who vetoes the crowd favorite, and then you end up with a compromise, which just means everyone is slightly less happy. As Spock would say, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. So we should sacrifice the opinions of contrarians and make them go to restaurants they don't like? Drastic times call for drastic measures. I don't know. Anyway, then you have to travel there. It's already later than I want, but if you want to eat at your normal time, you have to start planning way earlier, and most people don't even start thinking about going out until long after that ship has sailed. Then you arrive, and it turns out you need a reservation. Perfectly harmless for time travel. Just go back in time and retroactively put in a reservation once you decide on a place. But since you can't do that, you have to wait to get in. My family never waits. If there's a line, we're going somewhere else. But that means agreeing on a restaurant all over again. If you ever find a place, you have to decide where to sit if you're with a large group. Next to friends? Away from enemies? Just kidding. Or try and meet new people? Or you're early, waiting for the important people to arrive, and you don't know if you should pick a seat or just stand around hoping that somebody else will decide where everyone goes. Because the way tables are set up, you really only get access to your immediate neighbors and the people across. And once you pick, it's pretty much set in stone. Very rarely do people move. I find it interesting watching how many conversations pop up, but I never know which ones I can participate in, and end up just getting distracted when I try to pay attention to too many. Now it's time to pick a meal. A task I always dread. What you eat is kind of the entire point of going to a restaurant, but I have the hardest time choosing. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not indecisive. No, I'm very decisive, but I need to see all my options to come to the optimal decision. People try to talk to me while I'm reading, and I'm like, no, I'm trying to concentrate here. It's not fair because a lot of people already know what they want, or just stop at the first option that looks appealing. But I need to make sure I've made the right choice. I'm sitting here doing NP-hard calculations while everyone else is just settling for an approximation algorithm. I'm trying to maximize the amount of food I can get for the cheapest price, and also be something I want. I'm also looking around the other tables, sizing up the dishes to find the biggest. And it's super annoying how quantity is inversely proportional to price. The waiter will come back like 4 times, asking if we're ready. Then I get stressed, because everyone's waiting on me, and I'll pick something suboptimal. And I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I had just a little more time. I know it's strange, but it's serious to me. In Predictably Irrational, which is a great book, Dan Ariely talks about how people are actually happier with their decisions if they have fewer options to choose from. But that's not me. I need the full picture to make sure I've made the right choice. Yeah, I could look up the menu online beforehand, and I do sometimes, but if I don't know where we're going, that's not an option. Anytime I go to Canada, or any French-speaking place, entrees always confuse me. Even though I know in the back of my head, entree in French means appetizer, and I'm actually looking for something like plat principal. It still gets me every time. How do we mess that up, English? Every menu is different, and they all have their own creative ways of obfuscating the price. Some leave off the dollar sign, or don't put in a decimal point, put it in a different font, or hide it underneath the description instead of putting it on the right to make it easily scannable. And you know they're intentionally doing it to make sure you don't balk at the prices. But it's not fair! The drink menu is usually nothing but wine or coffee. But if you ask, they'll be like, oh, of course, we have soda, juice, lemonade, milk. And I'm like, why don't you put it on the menu in the first place? With exaggerated accompanying hand motions, of course. During the ordering process, there better be bread. Maybe it's all the gluten intolerance and people are scared of carbs these days. Or they're just trying to save a dime. But it seems more and more restaurants are foregoing what I consider an essential part of the pre-dinner experience. And what's this nonsense charging me for bread refills? No way! It makes a huge difference to me. Bread should be a given. And it's not that expensive. If even like one person orders one of your expensive drinks, it's more than going to make up for all the bread I can consume. And I can consume a lot. If it's free, you bet I'm going to make the most out of this deal as possible. Then there's waiting for the meal. My brother and I used to play cards, or go exploring to pass the time, but now I'm just supposed to sit and make small talk. You can always go to the bathroom and hope that it'll somehow make your food come faster. It doesn't make sense, but it happens all the time. The plural of anecdote is not data. I know, but it certainly feels true. If you're with a large group, they usually try to bring out everyone's meal together, but that sucks for me when I just ordered an entree. Now I have to wait for everyone to finish their appetizers and salads when I just want my main dish because it's already later than I want to eat. And if I forget and want to add something to my order, well, that's going to be another 20 minutes. But if they mess up, or your meal has something wrong with it, then somehow they can scramble and bring you a new one in like 5 minutes. The silver lining of restaurants is when somebody doesn't want to finish their meal. All the more for me. I rarely have leftovers. But if there's an almost empty plate going banging, you'll bet I'll be there to polish it off. Free food is my Achilles heel. And then you don't have to deal with take-home containers. I'm always in the mood for dessert, but I'm not into sharing. Some people are like, I don't need dessert. But then they ask the waiter for an extra spoon, because they just want to steal from everyone else. And I'm like, no, you should have got your own! When you want to leave, you ask for a check. But I always thought it should be called a bill. It's an etymological nightmare, and there are conflicting views as to why we call it a check. But it just doesn't sound right. I'm not going to get into tipping, that's a whole nother rant. Other than to say, we should all just be like Australia, where signatures are obsolete and tips are included. Why can't we do that? But I've never understood why they give you the bill and then wait a million years before coming back. Like, what do you expect me to do here? I'm not going to tally everything up and check your math. Just got to decide on a tip, put a card in the booklet. It doesn't take that long. And what if we're in a rush? I understand automatically increasing the tip for large groups. But what do you mean we can't split the bill more than 4 ways? Like, what? Technology could totally solve this. Why do we still rely so heavily on notebooks to take people's orders? I know it makes it a little more impersonal, but some restaurants literally have iPads where you place your order. And there's no confusion about who ordered what. You wouldn't even have to settle up with cash afterwards. This is the part of the video where I try to wrap it up with some conclusion about how, despite all this, I still put up with restaurants. But no, I have to say, I'm not a fan. Wow, you're ending it there? Well, it looks like I'm ending it with an argument with my overly dressed imaginary critic. Why do you keep saying I'm overdressed? And how am I imaginary? You're equally as scripted as I am. Rene Descartes, yo, and stop shattering the illusion. They're not supposed to notice how staged this is. Too late for that. I think having split-screen arguments with yourselves gives that away. Hey, can we rein it in, guys? You don't have to edit this. Hey, why does he get overlay text? Too many characters. More like he forgot to change his shirt. Excuse me? You want to say that again? I think not. No! Oh! What a mess.